This time we'll discuss about the mathematical model for linear functions. So this is the final objective for all 10th grader students. To learn about the linear functions, you need to apply that into the real world problems, since the mathematical language will be useless if you cannot relate it into the real problem. So you are now a problem solver. You want to estimate something based on the data that you have, and that is what mathematical model speaks about. Okay, so let's go to the what is the concept about this one. I will give you example for if you want to know the relation between temperature and yield strength. Okay, the temperature and yield strength, you have no idea about what is the relation, and then since you know that the yield strength depends on the temperature, it means the temperature is the independent variables and the yield strength will be the dependent variable. Now, how to gain the data, how to collect the data? Of course, you will do experiments, you try to research it, and then after you research that, there you find after 25 experiments, 25 trials, you collect 25 ordered pairs here and you plot it on this scatter plot. And this is it. This is the relation between temperature and yield. For example, if when I did experiment at the temperature if 54, I had the yield strength is about 120 and so yeah, this is the relation. But of course, we are not comfortable to tell about the relation between temperature and yield by this graph. It's not easy for us to tell people about this relation. Therefore, we want to simplify it by using the mathematical model approach. Okay, so as you can see here, actually this plot you show a specific pattern, which is this one. It is increasing into the right side. So when I'm increasing the temperature, the yield strength is getting higher also in value. So in the end, in this trend, I can use many approaches, of course, but since we are using linear function, actually I can try to use this line, this straight line, to represent the relation between temperature and yield. As you can see, this straight line isn't really really represents the ordered pair exactly, right? So the ordered pair that you have from your experiments are not really on that straight line. But as you can see that this straight line is quite good in represents those relations, since the deviation between those ordered pairs with the straight line is not that big for all of the ordered pair that you have, right? And to get to this conclusion of this straight line, you will learn by using the regression that you will learn on the 11th grade. So let's just skip for the regression. Let's just assume that we can represent that in this straight line. So this straight line, as you know, can be represented as a function, which is a linear function. So to show easily the relation between the temperature and the yield, we can use the linear functions that represents by this graph, this straight line, this red line. Okay, so if we're speaking about the straight line, if we're speaking about linear functions, let's recall back everything that we've learned so far. Slope, y-intercept, x-intercept, slope-intercept form, point-slope form, and this form. So the thing is, I want to clarify that we have to stop using y and x only. So actually the y-intercept represents the dependent variable intercept, and x-intercept referring to the independent variable intercept. But later on I will discuss this. So don't forget about everything that you've learned so far, since we have to translate the real-world problems into this mathematical language. Let's go to the steps. So what is the steps in using this mathematical language or mathematical models? The first one, of course, we need to understand the problem. So you need to learn how. When you read the descriptions of the problem, you need to practice how to understand that. Understand the problem means that you need to detect, since we are using only two variables, you detect what is the two variables involved, and then which one is the independent, which one is the dependent, right? And then to find the linear functions, of course, you know that we need at least the slope and one pair, or we need at least two non-pairs. So after you get all of this data, you need to translate that into a model. Translate into a model means you need to define what is the functions that you are using as the representative of the relation between these two variables based on the real world problem that we are speaking of. And the last one, we use that model, that functions to estimate. So yeah, this is the descriptions of each of the step. And as you can see that this is not necessary in the slope intercept form, it's just the representative. So you can use the other form. It depends on the objective. So let's just chill. Okay, just chill, just practice yourself, since of course this is the practical one. This is one of the example of the practical use of math. Okay, if you cannot go to this stage, the mathematic that you have learned so far is just useless. Okay, so let's just discuss the example. Page 98, number one. So if you read carefully the story on the textbook, you can really know that there is a store. Okay, the store is selling floppy diskettes. I know it's a little bit outdated, but let's just respect the story. So when they're selling the floppy disk, the objective is they want to gain money, right? So directly we can find out what is the two variables being involved, which is the units of the floppy disk and the total money they earn by selling those floppy disks. So, and of course, we can directly know which one is dependent on which one, right? So, of course, the total money they earns will be dependent on the total floppy disk that they sells. It means they sell. It means the total money or the money itself is the dependent variable, and the floppy disk will be the independent variable. And let's find out what is the data they give. So the store when they sell 10 floppy disks, they earns $15, and they sell 30 for $40. Now let's see. Let's use the mathematical model to represent what is the relation between the floppy disk and the total money they earns. Okay, so I will show you the steps by step using the mathematical model to find what is the function of this relation between these two variables, and then how to answer all the problems, all the questions on your textbook. The first step is detect two variables involved. Just like I've already explained before, we can detect that what is the independent, what is the dependent. But if you see or read the textbook carefully, there is a keyword there. The keyword is expressing dollars in terms of diskettes. Expressing dollars in terms of diskettes. It means the dollars will be the dependent, diskettes will be the independent. This is one of the keywords that is common being used on the textbook. But of course, you can get, actually, if you understand the problems without these keywords, you can really figure it out, which one is the dependent, which one is the dependent. The next one, state this. So I want you to state which one is the independent as complete as possible with the units. And then I want you to allocate the variable that you use. For example, for this one, I will use x. So you have to state it. So I will use x to represent the independent variable, which is number of diskettes. What is the dependent variable? Number of dollars that they earn. The unit will be in dollars, and I will use y as the dependent variable. So this is the first step that you need to do with all your works on the homework, on the assignments, on the assessments. And then step 2, detect the pairs given. So since we are using linear function, of course, at least we need to know what is the slope and what is one non-pair, or at least we know two non-pairs. Okay, so again, let me just recall back what is the pairs that been given on the book, on the textbook. So 10 floppy disks for $15, 30 floppy disks for $40. Don't forget, since the independent and dependent has been stated, you need to put the ordered pair in the right order. So it is 10, 15, not 15, 10. That is the first fundamental mistake that will make all of the model will be totally wrong. So be careful in that. And then step 3, after you have two known pairs, of course you can find the slope. So let's recall back what is the slope formula, and by using the formula you will eventually know that this is the slope, 5/4. And you have two known pairs, you have 5/4 as your slope. Of course we can find the equation for this one, since we don't know what is the y-intercept or of the independent or the dependent variable intercept. We have to use the point slope form, right? So let's step 4, write the particular equation expressing dollars in terms of diskettes using point slope form. So the first alternative, I will use the first pair, which is this one, right? So I will have this is as my equation. And the second alternative, I will use the second pair. So it's just up to you. You want to use which one. Since we know that these both equations actually referring the same line. They are equivalent to each other. So let's just convert into slope-intercept form, since it is much easier for us to use the slope-intercept form from this point. Okay, so yeah, you can use the arithmetic steps. I will just skip that, and I will just present you what is the slope-intercept form. And after that, we know now this is the model. This is the function. This is the relation that showing the relationship between the X, which is the number of floppy disks being sold, and the total money they earns. Okay, so directly if for one example, if I sell one floppy disk, it means I earn 5/4 plus 5/2 dollars, right? So if I sell one floppy disk, I earn that dollar. So this one, that's why we need this model, so we can directly know if we have how many, if we sell how many floppy disks, how many dollars that we can earn. Step 5, let's answer the question. So the question on the textbook, predict the price for a box of 100 diskettes. So since 100 diskettes speaking about the independent variable, it means by using the model, by using the function that we have, we are being asked what is the y if x equals 100. That is how the mathematical language speaks about this statement, this sentence. So for x equals 100, the y will be equals, you just substitute the x by 100, and then this is the final calculation, $127.5. So step 6, sketch the graph. So when you sketch the graph, don't forget that the horizontal axis belongs to the independent and the vertical axis belongs to the dependent. Don't ever forget that. So in the end, when you sketch the graph, you can use the two known pairs, okay, and you connect those, or you can use the the slope intercept form using the y-intercept and then using the slope. Either way, you can just sketch it. And this graph, this line represents the relation between x, which is the total numbers of floppy disks being sold, and y, the total money they earn.